Tick Tock. I am back for the 5th principle of Leave No Trace, which is minimize campfire impacts. All right. So first of all, let's talk about when you might want to use a campfire, what you might want to use it for. You might want to use it to cook. You might want to use it for warmth. And you might want to use it for entertainment, So cooking, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. You cook s'mores, you can cook your dinner, you can cook your breakfast, whatever you do, whatever you cook, you can cook it on a campfire. For warmth, obviously, that's pretty easy. Campfires get warm, you get nice and toasty around the campfire. And then last one is for entertainment. How many people have gone through and been around a campfire and told stories or listened to music or just sat and talked and enjoyed the fire and was out with some people that they really enjoyed hanging out with? That has happened probably since man started becoming friends with each other. So campfires have always been a big part of community. So, having a campfire is kind of a big deal. That's one of the things that we do at camp in the summer is we always start and we end with campfires because it is a traditional thing in the camp world is to make sure that we're having fun and using our campfires. So where might you make a campfire? Obviously at a campsite, maybe at a Girl Scout campsite, maybe at a state park or a national park or just a campground in your area. Absolutely, that's a great place that you could make a campfire. You could make it in your backyard, or you could always go when you are doing backwoods camping. Sorry, my cats are in here too, so they might pop up at one point or another or hit the thing. So when we are making our campfires, we always want to think about how to minimize their impact in there's my cat in the area. So how do we do that? We want to make sure that we're using established campfire rings. So when you go to a campground, Geronimo, do you want to say hi? Morty does. All right, both of my cats are coming in. So when you go to a campground and you see that big ring in the middle of the campsite, that is a fire circle. So you want to use those when you can, when they're there. And then you also can use a camp stove instead of a campfire. That's kind of depending on what your level of outdoorsmanship is. You can always build a mound fire. So these are a little bit more intensive and doesn't use a ring. It uses a ground cloth and you put dirt down and kind of make kind of a divot in the dirt, and then you build the campfire in that divot of the dirt on the mat so that you're not actually harming any of the dirt or vegetation around that particular fire. I've never done it, and I don't have a ground cloth to show you or explain to you, so I've actually put a link to a YouTube video of how to make a mound fire in the notes for this video. So you can always go and look and see how to do that elsewhere. And then you can always use electric lanterns for if you need light or something like that. So using electric lanterns, headlamps, that sort of a thing. One thing that you never want to do is build a ring with rocks that is a new ring. You always want to make sure that you're using established campfire rings, okay? You might go out in the backwoods and you might see that someone has made their own ring. That is you're gonna not be able to make it through the night if you don't make a fire, kind of a thing. You don't want that to be your first resort. That makes sense? Cool. All right, so now that you understand a little bit about how to minimize your campfire impact, let's go ahead and learn how to make a real fire. And for this, I'm actually going to ask my friend Tigger to help me out. So, Tigger, take it away.
Hey everybody, it's me, Tigger. So today I am going to start burning wood from our backyard. So we've got a lot of twigs and tree limbs where we cut down our tree that had died, and we've got to do some cleanup. So I thought this would be a great time to remind everybody about some of our basic campfire skills, and we'll see how this goes. So see you in a minute. Start by looking what's in my firebox because I haven't done an inventory in a while. We've got tongs, so this is really useful in reaching in and turning pieces of wood, or if you've got charcoal that you need to extinguish, you want to use tongs for that, or flipping foil packets. The ever useful set of gloves. These are not my fire gloves, but it can save your hands in picking up wood. I've got lots of matches and fire starters, so these will go into that in a little bit. Paper. This is twine, so cotton twine. UV gloves. So if you're not familiar with UV gloves, I'll show that a little bit closer. These aren't fireproof, they're fire resistant, which means they will or can catch on fire, but it's going to take it a little bit more than just say normal cotton gloves. So you could theoretically use this instead of an oven mitt if you needed to, pick something up and turn it or move it. Pro tip, don't get the knockoff ones. They're not fire resistant. They will go poof. Funky flames, we're not going to use these right now because it's daylight and you really don't see the magnificent colors as well, but it's really fun at night after you finish roasting your marshmallows and you just want to see some different colors in your fire. Mystical fire, funky flames, they come by all kinds of names, but basically it's just chemicals that changes when they're hot. Looking at here is my water hose. Since I am at home, this is going to be my water source. So anytime you're building a fire, of course that's when it starts up. You want to have water. Okay, so we've got our water source ready to go, and now we're getting ready to prep where we're actually going to build our fire. If you were doing this at a Girl Scout camp or a state park, or even if you're cleaning out a grill, you want to make sure that your fireplace is clean and ready to go. So I haven't used my fire pit since last season, so last fall, and it probably has some stuff in it that I need to clean out. So I'm going to do that real quick, and we will get started. So in a grill like this, it comes with a spark cover. When your fire is going, you definitely do not want to touch that with your hands because it's going to be super hot. So instead you want to use a trimmer like this. Works really well. Or you can use your UV gloves, but remember this is going to be hot. And like I said, I haven't used this fire pit since last fall. As you can see, it has, well, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a lot of burnt wood and debris in it, and we want to clean that out before we start building our fire. going to start off by making a little bird's nest. You can see I've kind of got a space under here. There's a lot of room because we want airflow. Let's see if you can see down here how much airflow we have under there. That's going to make sure that your fire gets enough oxygen. But I'll also have lots of smaller wood that'll catch on fire first. Okay, so we see we did get our fire going. Took a couple turns to get it working. Just have patience if you're trying this in your own fire pits and it doesn't start the first time. My recommendation is just make sure you have a lot of wood on hand, especially a lot of the small stuff that burns easily. Things that are about the size of a pencil or even smaller to get it started. That way you've got a lot of small stuff that catches on fire quickly to get it going. And then start feeding it larger pieces of wood a little bit at a time. And make sure you've got plenty of oxygen underneath, good airflow so you don't smother it. And there you go. That's a campfire. Have fun!
Isn't Tigger awesome? Thanks so much, Tigger, for allowing us to come and learn a little bit from you and learning how to make the log cabin way of making a fire. There's a few different ways, but she did the log cabin, and that's one of the easier ways. But it made sense because it showed us a lot of how the fuel, which are those little sticks, those little branches and pine cones, that sort of a thing, really needs the oxygen to come underneath in order to make sure that the fire comes up. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. So now that you know how to build a safe campfire, let's talk about some tips of when you are about to go out and make your campfire. So your very first thing that you want to do is to go back to our principle number 1 and plan ahead, right? So you want to know what the weather is going to be like when you're going out, where you are. So make sure, is there a dry spell? Is there going to be any wood that you're going to be able to use in the area? Is it all going to be wet? Is it going to be too dry in the area to actually make a fire? There are something called burn restrictions. So if the area gets too dry, and they will put burn restrictions, which say that you can only have a certain type of fire or you can't have any fire at all. So if you remember a little while ago, unfortunately, those big wildfires out in California, that was during a burn restriction. You want to make sure that you are finding out whether or not there's a burn restriction, and if there is, how serious it is, and what kinds of fires you can be making, and then be able to plan ahead and bring what implementations you need, whether it's just matches or if it's a full camp stove or what have you. So that's awesome. Some other things that you want to do are packing accordingly. So bring what you need. And then one thing that since we stopped right when the fire was going with Tigger, some things that I wanted to tell you: once you've made your fire, afterwards you want to let it burn all the way down, and you want all of the fuel in it to fully burn through. So sometimes you can see sticks on either side of the burn ring that may not get into the fire completely. You want to make sure that those get into the fire by the end of the night and burn completely through, because we need those to make sure that they turn into ash. Another thing that you want to do is, once it's burned through, you want to spread it in the campfire ring, and then you want to douse it with water. So just pour a lot of water everywhere. You remember that Tigger said one of the biggest things that you need to do is make sure that you have either a bucket of water or some other kind of water source, hers was a hose, near and able to just fully get everything soaking wet. And you want to do that before you leave for a day hike that you're going to come back to, or before you go to bed, because you don't want a little tiny ember and still kind of smoldering there, and then a rush of wind, and oh my goodness, it hit one of the trees, and then not good. You don't want to be that person, right? You don't want to be the person that accidentally started a wildfire. So you want to make sure that you get it all the way down and that it's all completely, perfectly water sogged. So then, after it's cold, after you've done all of that, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you gather up all the ashes that you made, and you want to take them and sprinkle them far away from the campsite. Okay, so the further you can go, the better, because as a campsite, a lot of people are going to be using it, because we always say use your established fire rings, right? So we don't want to spread them right there, because then everything is going to be ash, right? There are some backpackers who actually put them into a bag and then sprinkle it along the trail as they hike. So you could be finding ashes for miles, just so that they make sure that it gets spread out. And then on top of that, you want to, any extra firewood that you might have taken that you didn't burn, you want to spread naturally, so that it's not just all, in a clump right there. You want it elsewhere, in the woods, that kind of a thing. So, awesome. That's how you make sure that you are minimizing campfire impact at your campsite. Now, we talked about different types of things that we can use. So let's go ahead and talk about those different things. So let's do it. So we talked about some alternatives for campfires. Here is a big Coleman camp stove. So what these are they're just small stoves like this one has 2 burners. You can find them with just one, that kind of a thing. But this is a propane stove. So what you'd use is a propane tank, and the propane is attached, and then the propane comes out through the burners. You light the burners, and boom, you've got a camp stove. You've got a campfire. Very much similar to a regular stove. However, that is a little bit cumbersome, right? They're a little too much. That's something that you can use for cooking. But what if you're using it just for light, right? What if you just need light? So this is another thing that is used with propane. So it's a lamp. It's a propane lantern, and put that down in there. You screw this on. You light those little bags that are down in there, and you've got yourself a lantern. But my goodness, do you know how much all of this weighs? So much. So if you're not interested in using like a propane lantern because, well, honestly, propane is a fossil fuel, and so burning it is not super great for the earth. You can always go to an electric lantern, which runs off of batteries. This one's pretty good. It's an LED. LEDs are usually the better ones. The only thing about these lanterns is you got to be careful about bugs. But all of those are really very cumbersome, or they have a lot of weight to them. So if you're out backpacking, those probably are not you're definitely not going to want to take this with you, right? No. So there are little propane stoves that use a propane canister that's about half this size. And you just screw it on. They kind of look like claws, and they just kind of... I don't own one because I don't like using the propane. So if I don't use a propane stove, what do I use? I use this. This is a really cool camp stove that is fueled with sticks and branches and little pieces of, little twigs. And so anywhere that I go, I have fuel, so I don't need to be using fossil fuel. Does that make sense? Cool. What's really cool about it is that it has these little feet so that I can set it down. Now, when you are setting a camp stove, whether it's one of these or a propane stove or anything like that, you always want to make sure that you are setting it down on a very flat piece of ground, or at least the flattest that you can find, just in case if a big gust of wind or something comes and blows it over, you don't want it to be wobbly or anything like that. So it's better to have it so that it's on a flat surface, and so that it doesn't knock over and accidentally start a fire in a place where there is no fire ring to contain it, correct? What's cool about this is it comes with this little thing. I like to call it a jetpack. I'm not actually sure what the correct name is because I don't remember. But what you do is you attach it to down here, and this little area right here actually has a fan in it. I don't know if you can hear it, but you can make the fan go faster, higher, anything like that, which gets more air into the end or into the bottom of it. So I don't know if you can tell, but it blows the air. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So you attach it like that, put it out, and then what it does is it goes in from this into the chamber, and that's where you put all of the things that you want to get on fire. And then it makes kind of a tornado inside of fire, so a tornado of fire. And then you can set your pot or your pot on the top of it, or they also make a kind of like a pitcher that sets on here really nicely, and you can boil up water, and then you can put it into whatever you're using or you're eating for the night. So that's really cool. I really like this, mostly for the fact that it doesn't burn fossil fuels. So this is one way that you can have a fire and still be pretty light in your backpack. Now, what if you need light in the backcountry? Well, this can be cumbersome. It's kind of heavy. Is it really worth taking with you? I say no. I say you should take, there it is. I was hiding it from you, but I also hid it from myself. You should take a headlamp. So this is really cool because what you do, you put it on your head and then it'll light your way. I'm not going to turn it on because it's going to go straight into you guys. So, but you just kind of turn it on, or it's upside down. But you just click it on and then you have it illuminated, so you don't even have to have, it just is illuminating whatever you're doing with your hands. It's perfect. It's great. I know some people who use it when they're cross stitching, which is really fun and awesome. So not just for backpacking, for other things as well. So that is all of our minimizing campfire tips and tricks. And come back next week and we are going to be talking about respecting wildlife. That is principle 6. All right.